Hiya, I'm Luna, and welcome back to Memory Matters, where I dig through my brain, try and make sense of memories, and just generally try and fix the PTSD, complex regional pain syndrome crap that I've been dealt with. Today, well, you might know that the last episode was a simple one. Taking a creator that I've been watching for years, putting the memories side by side, and building out a timeline. Since I have some issues with memory just in general. However, this is a different sort of jump. This wasn't my intentional topic for today. However, I think I need to go through it, specifically because I want to just be able to watch the Then We Fight videos again without this person popping up. I want to be able to, well, you might have seen I started trying to stream Pokemon Showdown because my computer can actually handle it. But with both of those streams, this guy just popped up in my head as well. So I think it's important I go through this. The person in question is the King Nappy, someone I watched for years. However, I should start by emphasizing I am not going to go through the entire timeline of, the controversy. And while I specifically think that this show is important to open up for comments, to have these discussions, that's my hope for it. I ask that if you do comment, please don't bring up the victim in this case. So, if you would like more, feel free to comment. We'll have a nice discussion. And subscribe. Now, before I get also deeper into this, these are entirely going to be thoughts and memories, and they may be a little bit out there. I just want to put them on the table, not just for my sake, but I know this is cheating a bit, but I looked into Nappy's channel now, went to the most recent video and saw some of the comments. And it seems like I'm not the only one having these sort of thoughts. And as such, I want to have some of them put out there, to have this discussion, and for people who, are a little bit less in the PTSD memory side, to see how should I say this? If these thoughts are actually valid, or if we're just having some bad discussions. Okay, to start, King Nappy, I watched him way back in the day. He was doing like Pokemon Sweet Tooth. He did played through Snakewood, which is a crazy one. Honestly, I would recommend you looking at that one, not in terms of Nappy, but more because it's interesting in the concept of the time it was created. However, moving forward, then he started working with Shady Penguin to make these Soul Links. He was really the one pushing the Soul Links up until everything fell apart. And then people just sort of forgot the name of a Soul Link. They were sort of lost until people like Alpharad picked them up again with the two-player Nuzlocke. I also discovered not just Shady, but Patters through him. And Patters is someone I really respect in the Pokemon community, have also been watching for years. He has always been really great about presenting the community, pulling up smaller creators, and just everything like that. And honestly, just a lot of the creators I still watch now. Which kind of sucks because finding all these creators through someone that's just a scourge of my memory, just popping up out of nowhere, is difficult. Now, continuing the timeline, he did the Soul Links, the 2-player Nuzlockes, with Shady for years, up through just about 2019. They were in the middle of the Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon Soul Link, which is still my favorite Pokemon games to this day. And, geez, I can remember when this all came out. It was the spring of 2019. I was in a Tokyo hotel. I was gonna go out and enjoy the Ueno Park Sakura Festival. I mean, stuff my face with Igayaki, have fun. But how I like to take these sort of trips is slowly, just go when I'm ready, and of course I would still watch these Soul Link videos in bed before going out, which was also very important because people who know me know I have a really hard time with heat. And well, Tokyo, even in spring, was just really hard, as much as I was having fun. However, it came to a day where there just wasn't one, and I had to dig into it and find all of it out. And well, even to this day, I still have questions in my brain, like, he definitely did the grooming. I saw everything. I guess I didn't know him personally, but I feel like while I agree with the strictness of the tirade against groomers, I think if there was a certain sort of limitation, like a certain sort of understanding, that's a proper word, for people who are admitting this sort of stuff early on, and instead of just, oh, this is a groomer, get his ass. Like, I feel like if we were to leave open a little gap for them to go like, what am I doing? Because it takes a bunch of choices to have this happen. The choice to message someone like this in the first place, and then there's a choice every single time moving forward. However, with people like this, if they had the chance to follow their instinct of what am I doing, this is wrong. Especially, I feel like, now someone who knew him better could tell me if I'm wrong, I feel like Nappy could have been able to stop if there was less of a culture of get his ass and lose everything against the immediate sort of grooming allegations. But that's not the world we live in. I feel like him and other creators that end up going through with it, even after the first choice to do so, even if they were having those feelings and were willing to admit that those were wrong and go to get help and get medications and whatnot, they still would lose everything in the end. And I know that's probably just coping, me thinking, oh, he would have probably quit and admitted it and gone and got help. But that's also why I wanted to bring that up in the first place, because I'm conflicted in that angle. Like, I feel like it's important to have these people, if they can come out and say it, say why, say if they've done anything and had those sort of "what am I doing" feelings, and and then go get help. Of course, I feel like they could get the help they need, and if we didn't put too much pressure on them, like on their finances and whatnot, they could actually not be that. However, even if they think about it or do it once, there's sort of a pressure of, I'm about to lose everything if this comes out, leading to silencing the victim, leading to worse actions. And even if Nappy wouldn't have done that and fixed himself in the first place, I feel like that sort of leniency is something to talk about in case anyone else with these sort of mental afflictions ends up having those moments. Because I feel like we should allow them to have those moments, let them not be risking their entire livelihood just to, go out and fix themselves. Sorry, those sort of thoughts have been going through my head for years when it comes to Nappy. I still have checked on his channel every now and then, and I'm like, it's very possible you could have not done this and still been a big figure. Because he has this charisma, he has this strength in his words that not very many other people do. And that's sort of the problem with it. It's what makes him fun. It's what draws people back to him even after everything. And I mean, he did, in this timeline, he did go through with everything. He did go as deep as he did, and the victim was affected worse than we would have wanted. And for that, I'm not going to sugarcoat that in the slide. And once again, tell me if I'm wrong for thinking like that, and thinking that, oh, maybe Nappy could have, because he didn't, in the end. And he hurt not just the victim, but the people he worked with and the people around him. And for that, I'm not willing to condone that behavior. Talking about affecting people around him, before we go into his current state of his channel, like I try to in these sort of videos, I want to bring up that normally I actually have a image of the face of the person just so I can have a face I'm talking to. But instead of doing it with Nappy, I have Shady Penguin up here. Usually this makes it easier, but instead I think having him here makes it harder. However, I want to have his face here specifically because he's the one, not just who was harmed on workplace level by all this coming out with Nappy. He was able to build back up in the Pokemon community, and now he's one of the greats doing the Then We Fights. and he was able to walk past it, even though he was clearly affected by all of it. And I feel like this video is sort of an apology to him. Even though I wasn't involved, you can tell the situation was difficult on my end, and which it shouldn't have been, because I never knew him. Shady did. And Shady was out of the Pokemon community for years because of this. So I'm trying to make amends with him. I honestly hope he doesn't see this, because of course it's pouring my heart out, and once again he was the one directly involved and I wasn't. I feel like I shouldn't be feeling this way. Well, anyway, props to Shady for being able to dig himself out of this, go on and be strong with his career, with his family. And honestly, I was also intending to have a picture of the victim before I decided, no, let's just not include the victim. Let's not even say the name, because I don't want to tell a story that isn't mine to tell, if that makes sense. This is a series going through my memories and opening the comments to your discussions based off of my memories and your memories. Unless the victim comes through, sees this video, and decides to comment, I don't want to get them involved. Now that being said, let's go into Nappy's channel. Believe it or not, it's still here. The most recent video was posted over a year ago at this point. And I would always pop back into Nappy's channel every year or so, something like that. And especially over the past, like 3-4 years after the incident. I'm not gonna call it an incident. After the grooming, there would always be comments being rude, saying he needs to go because of all that. And while I understand them, it doesn't give any room for him to be like, I've gotten help, I've gotten medications, and people after that can still say, oh, I'm not going to support you, and that's fine. I still think it's important for the people to get help, because those sort of feelings aren't normal, as much as some sectors of our society have tried to normalize. They are something that you need to get help for. And if you're listening right now and you're having those sort of feelings, please get to a therapist, get to a psych. Get any medications you end up needing. And as much as you have that feeling in you to actually start a conversation, don't. Be warned. With people like, especially people like Nappy, he was essentially shoved off the face of the earth in the Pokemon community. He's just left as a scourge and brains like mine. And frankly, while it's easier on the internet to get into those sort of conversations, it has more consequences. Because, like old people and in-person sort of deals, you can essentially be shoved out of a town, but then you could move or whatever. On the internet, you show your face and people know you, you're not only shoved out of the internet, your face is going everywhere, and people, no matter where, especially throughout the country, the US, can look you up, see this, and any applications that come through can essentially make you lose a job. And that's everywhere, even though it's easier to make that decision. You know what, I'm gonna make this analogy. Back during right after the Boulder shooting, I was working in the sister store of the store that got shot up. I was working as a cashier when someone tapped me on the back and was like, oh, shoves a phone in my face, and oh, that happened. A shooting. And one thing I need to point out to justify an action like that, not justify, to point out about an action like that, is there are various points where a decision could be made to not. When walking or driving to the location, the person could have stopped for an ice cream. When at the location, they could have stopped and bought a candy bar or whatever. And that could have happened at any point along the journey to the location, within the location, and even when planning it out, like seeking help. And that's also true of pedophiles and grooming in person. There are so many more points where they could have been like, what am I doing? And stopped. I could have stopped and started making some cookies or whatever. They could have, when driving to a certain place to meet someone, stopped and got some ice cream, or even stopped to get checked into a hospital. But on the internet, there isn't that. You get connected too quickly for there to be multiple stages of, what am I doing? Here's a point to stop. Here's a point to stop. Here's a point to stop. However, when you get deep into it, when you have so many of these conversations, that's when you get to the point on the internet of, here's a point to stop, here's a point to stop, here's a point to stop, like you would in person. And that's why I'm not going to justify Nappy's actions, because he had already reached the point where he had, here's a place, here's a place, here's a place, here's a place. But if he had stopped when there was like, here's a place, I think that would have been a way to not justify the actions. If he had stopped there, said, I had attempted grooming, I'm going to hold back for like 3 months, get myself checked out, going to a psych, get some medications. Yeah. I think that would have been good. And I think I would have still supported him or other people if that's what happened. That's not what happened. And he still holds on to my brain, even despite. And even in the most recent of the videos he uploaded, well, there was a point way further back where he wasn't showing his face either, it was just his voice. I don't know what that was about, maybe to reduce the connection. But if I click on this most recent video
of our brand new
There's his face. And everything. And I don't think I'll be able to find that comment again, but there was a comment just pointing out, praying, like this one is praying for his return. Not to make amends. And there was another starting to question if he was able to stop. And those were the same questions I've been having. Those are the same things that have been plaguing my brain. So, as such, feel free to comment. Feel free to point out any bad parts of my own thought process. I will remind you that these are just thoughts that have entered my brain, whether I want them or not. Thoughts that come up when I tried streaming Showdown. Thoughts that come up when I watch Shady and other creators and those Then We Fight videos, as much as I try to support them. He's just a scourge in my brain. It just won't go away. Well, I don't know. I hope you ended up... You probably didn't like that discussion, because that was a difficult one. I hope you at least found it interesting and would like to have a conversation. If you're someone like me who had a more difficult upbringing and got really connected to these creators, like in this case, feel free to discuss your experience, what happened with certain creators, and whether you're willing to let them back in if they follow certain actions like getting help, getting the medication at this point. Well, anyway, I hope the next episode would be less bleak. This was, once again, not really the topic I was intentionally going for this time around, but I just hope that putting that out there will make my brain just stop putting him and plastering him up when I try to just think, you know? Thank you for watching if you got this far.